Kirk Johnson. I'm president of the BMW Motorrad Club in Northern Illinois. In this video, I want to speak to you new owners or potential new owners of an LT. So no matter what year it is, whether it's a 1999 all the way up to 2009, there's a lot of new owners out there. A lot of people have been selling off their bikes lately, and you're getting always just a whole plethora and a host of new owners of these used bikes. So I want to talk to you about some of the challenges, some of the different things to look for on the bike, some of the concerns that other riders have had, that I've had myself, and just different aspects of the LT if you're considering buying one of these, if you haven't already bought one. I'm going to break it into 4 categories. So first category is going to be just some of the things to check for on the bike, some of the aspects of the bike, some of the negative things that you're going to encounter when testing out the bike, or if you've already bought the thing, some of the maintenance concerns, and then some of the features, and not necessarily in that order, but those are the basic kind of aspects of that I'm going to be looking at. So as a new buyer, if you're considering buying an LT because you've always liked the way they look, kind of that futuristic style that they have with all the fairings on them, everything like that, one of the main concerns of this bike is relating to weight. This is a very heavy motorcycle. I can't remember the exact figure, but it's over 900 pounds or something. It's ridiculously heavy. It baffles the mind how heavy this thing is. And because it's so heavy, it lends itself to a lot of problems on its own. One, it's a very tippy bike. It wants to tip over all the time. Now, it doesn't always tip over. I've gone for years without tipping the bike over. I did recently have a little issue where I hit some mud going around one of those little speed bumps in the road, and the bike just disappeared from underneath me. It didn't hurt the bike, it didn't hurt me, but it startled me nonetheless. And it's because the bike is so top heavy. A lot of new owners wind up tipping the thing right over in a parking lot, or it becomes real tippy when you're trying to do slow speed maneuvers, like navigating around a gas station, something like that. Or if you hit a little bit of gravel and you grab onto that front brake, it's going to go down. Just know that going into it. If you are of good health and you're strong and you're reasonably tall, you're not going to have too much problem with this bike. And believe me, if you can master this bike, you can ride anything. Alright, so it's definitely one. Alright, another one of the challenges that have to do with the weight is that parts tend to wear out on this bike maybe a little bit more often than other models, especially other lighter models. You'll go through tires quicker. It takes a very specific tire, especially in the rear. It takes a 79V rated tire in one certain size. So you're going to find challenges in having to purchase tires for this motorcycle. There are still 3 manufacturers currently that make a tire that fits this bike with the proper load rating in the rear. The 3 manufacturers are Metzler. They make the Marathon 880. Bridgestone makes the Battle Axe. I think it's the BT020 or something. And then there's the Avon Storm 2, which I currently use. And those are for the early model bikes. The bike here behind me, my bike, is a 2000, and I think that you can use that up to about a 2005. They all have their pros and cons. The Marathons tend to last a long time. The Battle Axe is, I don't know, it's somewhere right in the middle of the road, and these tires tend to wear out the quickest, but you get, in my opinion, you get the best grip with these tires. So there's always trade-offs with everything. If you've been riding a motorcycle for a while, you already know about the trade-offs, and things work better here, but they don't work there, whatever. Another item that comes along with the weight, always relating to the weight, is the springs. The springs that were on this bike originally are just your standard rate springs. They're the coils are even. They're evenly spaced if you look at them, and they do a good job when they're brand new. So if you're buying a bike that has more than 30,000 miles on it, that is one of the things that you're going to probably want to look into changing. Whether you just change out the springs onto the original shocks, or you change out the whole system altogether and put on like the Olin shocks or something like that, where it's a spring and shock combo. It's going to make a huge improvement in the way the bike handles, the way it brakes, the two-up riding, everything. It's just going to be it's a whole world different. And I'll get into some of my top picks for things to do to this motorcycle to make it fully what it was meant to be. So, springs. Another one that tends to wear out, a wear item, which is the clutch. Now, if the previous owner was somebody that was really heavy, or they were constantly riding two up, you never know what the previous owner did on the motorcycle. If they rode the clutch a lot, if they engaged it at high RPMs to start off from every stoplight or stop sign, it will wear out the clutch really fast. So just know going into it that if you need to put a clutch in this, I hope to God you are not allergic to wrenches. If you are, you better have a really deep wallet, because what does BMW mean? And besides, built motorcycles weird, it's bring more wallet. Parts are expensive, and the labor is very expensive. And if you take this to somebody, to get the transmission out of this motorcycle, you're probably looking at 8 to 10 hours in labor to get the trans out of the bike, just to get to the clutch. So you're going to be paying quite a bit of money for that. The center stand on the motorcycle, because of the weight. The weight definitely plays a big factor in getting it up on the center stand. Now, these earlier model bikes, they don't have the electric center stands that some do. The electric hydraulic center stand. This bike is it's pretty heavy, and it takes a lot of force to get that center stand down underneath it. I prefer it this way because it doesn't add even more weight to the bike. But I've also used the motorcycles that have that hydraulic center stand, and when they work really nice. They're very nice. It's a lot easier just to push a button and ride the thing up than it is to have to get off the bike, carefully balance it, and then stand down for all your worth on that center stand to get it up in the air. Things that will help that are those new springs, because it sets the bike up just a little bit higher, and also new tires. I've noticed a change between when I put brand new tires on it. Man, it feels like it just jumps up. Anyway, those are just things. So if you don't have a lot of strength, or you got back problems, or problems with your hips, or you got knees replaced, or whatever's going on, know that going into it. When you're considering the bike, try to put it up on the center stand. If it has one of those electric center stands, you're not going to have an issue. But if it's a bike like this one, where you've got to push down on that thing manually, try it before you buy it. Another one that has to do with the weight is the side stand. Because this bike weighs so much and it's top heavy, it puts a lot of pressure down on that side stand when it's down. So you have to be very careful where you put it down. If you are putting it down in a parking lot on a hot summer day, and it's asphalt, it may melt the asphalt, or it may mush in. It won't melt the asphalt, but it'll, the asphalt's mushy. It may mush in and tip the bike over, and you may come out to your bike laying outside. So be aware of that stuff. If you park it on grass, definitely put one of those little coin things down. There's attachments and things that you can buy for the side stand where you can attach a bigger footprint on there. I have welded a bigger footprint onto mine, and it works out really well. Sometimes it scrapes a little bit when I go through the corners. I tend to ride this bike for all it's worth. I want to drag pegs on this thing all the time. So it's just little things, little things. And then I think that's it. That's all I can think of regarding to the weight. In order to so that you don't wear the clutch out prematurely, you try to keep it as close to 2,000 RPMs or under when you pull away from the stop sign. This is not a bike that you want to jackrabbit start or try to pull a wheelie on. It will not do it, believe me, it just won't. It doesn't have that low end torque, and it certainly doesn't have a clutch strong enough to grab on. Even if it did, it will just smoke the clutch and you'll wind up with a big repair bill. So moving on to our next item. In this segment of the video, I want to talk about some of the things to check for when you are considering an LT. One, you want to make sure that all the features on the motorcycle are operating correctly. So you want to make sure the radio works, the little key fob works, if you have one of those, if that's something, one of the features on the bike. You want to look for, make sure all the headlights, all that stuff, just your typical things that you want to check over. But one of the big things you want to look for are leaks, oil leaks of any kind. You want to really inspect the final drive on the unit to see if it's, make sure that it's not leaking any oil, make sure that there's no play in that rear tire. The final drive on the LT is definitely a point that has a lot of problems with it. There's a lot of issues. People have the things going out. I don't know if it's a design flaw necessarily, but I think it was an assembly flaw at the factory where they have failures, repeated failures, where they were over shimmed in the crown bearing that's in there. There's a very large bearing inside there, and they're improperly shimmed, and it puts pressure on it, and over time it wears out, and then the bearings fall out of it, and people have had issues. So you want to ask about that. You want to look at that, make sure it's not leaking. You want to get up underneath and look at the transmission area. Make sure that there's no, gross amounts of gear lube coming out of there, or engine oil. If you see engine oil underneath there may be a rear seal. The way that this motorcycle was designed is that, unfortunately, if the rear seal starts leaking, it will usually contaminate the clutch, and then you're wind up with having to buy a clutch. Spend a couple $100 just for the part. If it also the slave cylinder, if the slave cylinder for the clutch starts leaking, there's a shaft about that long that the brake fluid will travel down and go right onto the clutch and soil up the clutch. You want to just get underneath there and eyeball it. Ask the previous owner if you have that opportunity to see if they've had that changed, if they've ever had that stuff worked on. If they did, great. It's okay to have those parts worked on and fixed prior to you owning it, because you don't want to have, like I said, you don't want to have to spend gross amounts of money on getting that thing fixed. Good. Okay, one of the other very important items here is these underneath your gas tank here are quick disconnects. If these are plastic, now this is just a plastic tube on mine, but if you have the plastic quick disconnects, the little button that you can push in and you separate these things really easy, you absolutely must change these out. They are a very bad design. They break just from vibration, and they leak all over the place. There's been guys that have had their bikes start on fire as a result of these things leaking, or they at least, you get gas all over your shoe or all over your pants. So you definitely want to change these out. Okay, they make an upgraded model, metal ones. On my bike here, I just have a plastic, like a hard plastic little tube clamped in. Basically, I think this might even be the end of the quick disconnect, I'm not sure, but I just pulled it off, and now I just have a hose, so I just connect the hoses together. The disadvantage of this is that you have to clamp the hose on the gas tank, otherwise all the gas dumps out. It's just another way to do it. I like to save money. Those disconnects are about 75 bucks a set, so just something else you want to check out and change if it has not already been changed on your LT. The other item, last item I'll talk about that you want to look at are the brake lines on the bike. I'm making this video in 2013, and most of these bikes have been on the road for quite a while, and they still have the original brake lines on it. That is something you're definitely going to want to change you're going to need to change if they haven't been changed out already. So again, ask that previous owner if they still have the original lines. You know, hey, have you ever done anything with those original lines? If they say no, just know that you're going to wind up, you're going to want to change those out, because you don't want to have a brake problem while you're on a trip somewhere having a blown brake line. We're seeing a lot of posts in the forums lately about people with bursting brake lines. You know, thankfully they do still, nobody's that I know of is, you know, wrecked as a result of it, but they'll come out and there's brake fluid all over the ground or whatever, and now they got a problem, and they have, you know, they changed the brake lines. The BMW dealership will tell you that you have to put on those BMW lines again. That's nonsense. There are other companies out there that make far superior products to the BMW parts that cost a lot less money. I installed on my motorcycle a set of the Spiegler brake lines. They make a custom-made set that fit like perfect on these bikes, and I don't know, it cost a couple $100 for the set of stainless steel braided lines, and it makes a world of difference. The braking is better, the fluid stays cleaner for longer, just a lot of benefits to it. So that's something to look out for. In this segment of the video, I'll talk to you a little bit about the features, some of the negative aspects, some of the things that you're going to want to look for and change if they haven't been already. Just little things, the little things. So, starting off here at the headlight. Headlight is one of my #1 things that you need to change on an LT. The headlight, especially on these early model LTs, they were terrible. It was like driving around in your car with the parking lights on. You cannot see the road, and people can't see you very well at all. There's just not enough brightness there. I don't know if it had to do with the reflector design or these lines that are up in the front. I don't know, but it stunk. So I put in an HID kit, a 55 watt HID kit in my bike here, and that's in the 5000 color, 5000 Kelvin color. Any higher on the color spectrum, it turns purple. Any lower, it starts to bleed back into the white-yellow area. Huge difference, major safety change. I will say that when I put this headlight in, I noticed that cars were seeing me much, much better. And I could see the road finally. I could see all the signs in the road, the reflectors. Big, big difference. A little talk just about the windshield. There are other options out there for the windshields. There's other manufacturers if you choose to, or maybe your bike has one on there already. You do get, with the stock windshield like on mine, you do get a little bit of head buffeting at like those side winds, things like that. There's other windshields out there that are wider, that have a big bubble in them. Some of them look like a blast shield for a space shuttle. I don't know. There's a lot of different things out there. And if your windshield looks pretty crappy, you may have to change it out and look at some of those options. There's definitely things that are available for the motorcycle to make it your own, I guess. The windshield does offer reasonably good protection in the rain. I wouldn't say that the windshield is it's not like Goldwing or anything where you've got this massive plexiglass thing in front of you where you can go through a downpour and somehow stay dry. This one you do get wet on. You definitely get rain that comes climbing over the windshield and then down your front and pools up in your crotch area. Very typical of other motorcycles. Let's see, we got the radio. Little talk about that. Radio on this thing is an absolute joke. It's I don't even know why they bothered putting it on there, other than just thinking that people were going to be able to hear this thing going down the road. The speakers are terrible, and this is in the stock configuration. Speakers are terrible. The amplifier in it is just one of the worst that's ever been made, and it squelches out really bad. The bass is awful. Don't expect much from the radio. If somebody's went ahead and put a different radio in the bike, well, maybe that's going to be for you. I personally like to have the headphones in my helmet. I use a Sena Bluetooth unit, and I just listen to my music or talk on the phone or whatever. It just makes it a lot nicer to do that. The seats on this motorcycle, they're typical for any other motorcycle stock seats. They're not made for humans. They're really made for somebody that has a butt that's shaped like a log, and it's very painful to sit on for long periods of time. I would strongly recommend, if you have any hip problems, any problems sitting for tremendous amounts of time, that you look into and invest in an aftermarket seat of your own choosing. The seat I have is a Rick Mayer custom saddle, and it works great. It may not be the great one for you. Maybe you need a Corbin seat, or there's a lot of different options. There's a lot of seats out there, custom seats on the used market, that you can look for too. So just know that if it's not comfortable for you, you can fix that. The mileage on this motorcycle, you'll get somewhere between the upper 30s through the 50s, and it really gets great mileage, especially if you are a little bit lighter, you're not pulling a trailer, stuff like that, or you're not always on the throttle. On trips, I tend to get in the high 30s to low 40s. Around town, if I'm just kind of putting around, I'll get over 50. So it for a big heavy bike, it's amazing the kind of mileage that you can get out of this thing. Trunk space on the motorcycle it's decent. It's not stellar by any means. You probably, if you got a top rack or something on the top box, you might be using that on trips, especially if you go two up, just because of the amount of luggage that everybody likes to bring. And a couple other features that come to mind are the 12-volt system on this motorcycle. These early model ones did not have that CAN bus system, and then the later models do. And I don't know why they went with the CAN bus system, but it presents its own challenges. And just know that you'll have to you may have to wire in, if it's not already there, you may have to wire in another fuse box so you can have some of the more high-powered 12-volt things, accessories like heated gear, things like that. You are running, your wife's hair dryer or something. You're going to have to probably put something else on there. Last thing I'll talk about is the gauges on the bike. The speedometer in particular, 10% off all the time. It's just not good. So if you got a GPS, you've got at least something that's reasonably accurate, or hopefully very accurate, that you can learn to watch. 10%, it's reading 10% high. I don't know, some of them may read 10% low, but they're really inaccurate. I think that there's things that you can do to fix that if you really want to calibrate it. If you're really mechanical or electrical, you can get into the gauge and mess around with settings in there and stuff and actually get it a little bit closer. But those are just some of the little features and concerns and things like that. In this part, I'm going to talk about some of the maintenance and the service challenges on this motorcycle. One of the main challenges if you do your own service is all the Tupperware, all the cladding that's on this motorcycle, going all the way to the back. It's the only thing, it seems, that you don't have to remove the sides for is putting air in the tires and changing out the final drive fluid and the engine oil. I swear everything else you gotta pull covers off, and it takes quite a while to do. It's pretty easy to do. In fact, you can watch one of my other videos that involves or shows you how to remove the Tupperware on this motorcycle. Those are things that you're going to want to learn to do yourself, because you're going to, please don't be, if you're allergic to wrenches, this may not be the bike for you. That final drive, which I mentioned earlier in the video, that's a maintenance concern. You want to stay up on changing out that fluid, change it pretty regular. I tend to change the final drive fluid on my motorcycle every 3,000 to 4,000 miles, and not because it's getting dirty, it's just so that I can inspect it. It takes almost no gear lube as it is, and it's less than a quart. So to change it out is really pretty cheap insurance, just to make sure that if I start seeing metal particles or something out of the ordinary in there, I can go ahead and rebuild the final drive on it before it breaks. It's one of those before it breaks things. I talked about the clutch already. It's easy to burn out. It's a lot of work to get to it. Talked about the slave cylinder. Some of the other things, you know, regarding weight. You may burn through brakes a little bit quicker than you do on some other bikes. Other than that, I mean, if you kind of treat it like an airplane, where you do a lot of maintenance to it at one time in the year, it's pretty darn reliable. It goes and goes. You just got to work through some of the little issues that are out there. So, last thing I'll talk about here is my number one. I've got 3 number 1 things to do on this motorcycle that I would really encourage you to look at doing to make it more of your own, more comfortable, more reliable, things like that. One, I already mentioned, is the headlight. That's a number 1. The other one would be to change out that seat. That's another one of my number 1 things to do. And the third one would be the springs. Put on some good quality progressive rate springs that really changes the whole dynamic of the motorcycle. You cannot believe how much different it would feel if you went from those old worn out standard rate springs to progressive rate springs. So whether you change it out to the Olin springs or you use Hyper Pros like I've used on this one. And then my number 2 thing, which could be another number 1, is the brake lines, which I mentioned. So I hope you gotten something out of this. Don't be afraid of it. Fear definitely will get you into an accident. Don't be afraid of this thing. It will definitely get you through the corners. You can really beat the hell out of it. And I think it likes it. It definitely likes a lot of RPMs. You can get it way up in the RPM band and still have lots and lots of power. You know, they say drive it like you stole it. So I would encourage you to get on the thing and drive it like wild, because it can handle it. So I hope you get something out of this, and if you appreciate the videos, consider a donation to our club. Also take a look at some of the other videos that are out there. So thank you for watching.